Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to the ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Tony Twist, joined by my co-host, Miss Ellie G. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I think we're
we
on a
might
bit
have
of a delay.
I think we are, and technology just at times just kind of sucks. But anyways, we're gonna make the best of it. It's, as you can see behind me, it's WrestleMania weekend, coming to you from Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. And boy, oh boy, it's WrestleMania 39. It should be a pretty jam packed show. Big things happening, of course. But let's bring on our guest, coming to you out of Texas from Wildkat Sports, the voice of Wildkat Sports, Mr. Sammy Kiss. Good morning, Sammy, or should I say good afternoon? How you doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is. It's hard for me to keep track of that. I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? I bet you're doing awesome because it's WrestleMania weekend. How can you be doing bad when it's WrestleMania weekend, right?
Absolutely. Sammy, you were at Mania last year.
Yes.
Some huge moments last year. Looks like we might be in store for some big moments this year. We're going to kind of do a rundown, little preview. What's the biggest thing you're looking forward to, or what are you excited the most about this weekend?
Man, so, ever since WrestleMania turned into two nights, it's hard to really focus on anything in particular all weekend just because it's such a big show, such a big event. Obviously Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes have been built to for a really long time, but I think I'm with the majority that I'm really excited about the tag team championship match. I've been a supporter of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for a long time, so I'm really looking forward to that tonight. But there's a lot of great matches up and down both cards. I think it's going to be one of the better WrestleManias in the 39-year run of the show.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the two-night format. I really would prefer if they just went back to the one night. The two-night it's too much.
I understand why they do it. One of my favorite parts of the way Triple H would do those old NXT takeover shows is that they were usually 5 matches. They were about 2.5 hours long, so you never overstayed your welcome with the shows, and it gave time for everything to breathe. But the problem with that format for a pay-per-view, or particularly WrestleMania, is that doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of people to be on the show. And I think more than anything, WrestleMania is the show that they know that everyone on the entire roster is looking forward to being a part of every single year. And, WrestleMania 35, I think, was 6 hours long. And that's maybe, I'm not even sure that's including the pre-show or not. Like, it was a long show. And I would rather watch 2 3.5 hour shows versus one 6-7 hour long show. Personally, I think what they really should do is just have maybe fewer matches on the show and not everybody gets on the show. I mean, they have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and that's not even on WrestleMania anymore. Now that's on SmackDown before. So
it was on SmackDown last night. Did you get a chance to catch it?
Yeah, I was able to catch it. Yeah, I thought SmackDown was actually really great. Last year I was for SmackDown, got to see the Hall of Fame with The Undertaker afterwards. And sometimes the SmackDown before WrestleMania can be, in years past, it was almost like it wasn't even really a show. It was like a clip show. They would play the promo packages. They'd occasionally have a live match or not. I know for a few years they would even film something at WrestleMania Access. So they would just have like one match. So it was essentially like Sunday Night Heat, where it was like a preview show for WrestleMania. So I thought it was actually really great that this felt like a real SmackDown. Like, it felt like a go-home show. They had the promo with Roman and Cody, the promo with the Usos and Kevin and Sammy, and then obviously the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So I thought it was actually solid.
Yeah, I have to agree. I thought it was. I was a little disappointed with Monday Night Raw this past Monday, live from Phoenix. I don't know, like, the build-up this week and maybe in years past, I thought that maybe kind of going back to the Attitude Era, like you had to watch Monday Night Raw and you had to watch
Yeah.
SmackDown before Mania because something big could happen, right? The
Yeah.
lead up to the show. And
Yeah.
I was really happy with the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, but I thought the Roman and Cody, obviously they've been in a lot of jawing back and forth and there's been a lot of talk, but I would have loved to see the Bloodline come out and just beat the hell out of Cody right before Mania. You know, like I kind of miss some of those things that they used to do back in the day. It just feels like some of those things are missing nowadays.
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, you can tell, in my opinion, you can tell that it's a Triple H show because it does remind me a lot of when the kinds of NXT shows. And if a lot of people maybe don't look at it, remember it this way. I always felt that the NXT shows, particularly the ones right before a big takeover, were kind of, you could miss them. And I think that that's not even necessarily a negative thing. I think that's a testament to the stories that he was telling, that once things are set for the show, you're set, you're excited, you're in, you know what's going to happen, you know what you're ready to see, that there's really nothing else left to say. You know, I remember when Cody had that promo with Paul Heyman, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and Heyman had that great line about how, you know, Roman Reigns was the son that he wished that Cody Rhodes, you know, was, or whatever it was. That was a really great moment. And I thought, like, man, that was like a really good promo. I hope that they don't do anything to kind of take away from that in the time since. And that's the thing, is like you had like the Rey Mysterio knocking out Dominic, you had the hug between Kevin and Sammy. You know, there are a lot of little things that have already happened that, and I'm sure you've seen people complain online that the later you do it, people complain that like matches aren't set for WrestleMania, that the shoe hasn't dropped yet. But if you drop it too early, that's like the big thing that they were setting up to be what is going to get you to watch the show. So if you do it too early, then if you do it too late, then, you know, you miss out on the opportunity to build to the show. But if you do it too early, you got to follow up on what is already supposed to be the kind of hook, you know? So it's a balancing act, but I don't think it was a bad show. It was a Raw where it felt like if you didn't see it, it didn't really matter. Right. But again, I think that's a good thing in the sense that you don't need to see it because everyone's already excited to see Mania, you know? So in that sense, I thought it was great showing that like everything is set. Like you don't need anything else. Like you're already like everything on the show that has been built well, at least, I think there's nothing much more they can do to get you to be interested. I think everyone is as excited for Sammy and Kevin versus the Usos as they're going to be. Cody versus Roman as they're going to be. You know, there's a lot of stuff on the show that it feels like everyone's set, you know?
Right. Now, kind of talking about tonight, the Saturday Mania, there's been a lot of questions about who is actually going to be the headliner, the main event. There's been a lot of talk back and forth. Initially, they said Austin Theory and John Cena were going to open the show, and then they were saying they were going to main event, and then Charlotte and Rhea were going to main event. I think it's time for the ladies to really take the spotlight. I'm going to be a little disappointed if Charlotte and Rhea are not the main event. Ellie, I want to hear what your thoughts on this in regards to the actual main event for tonight. We know what the main event's going to be for Sunday. It's going to be Roman versus Cody. That's the big payoff. We've been waiting on a long time. Who should main event tonight, Ellie?
I think I have missed more than half of this conversation because of technical difficulties.
But it's okay. You came in right at the right time. You didn't miss anything. You're right on. You're right on point. Oh goodness.
There are no mistakes in wrestling. Whatever you miss or don't miss, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
20% of what you're saying. So I think
I don't know if it's my connection or geez.
Oh man, we lost her. That's okay though.
Yeah,
you know, things will happen. You know, there's a saying in live television that there are no mistakes. Everything you do is on purpose. You know, so she's just building up to the crescendo of what she needs to say. So
well, let's go back to the main event tonight. What are you thinking? I'm gonna adjust some settings on my end.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Ahead.
So first, I know I heard. I understand what you're saying about where they announced that Cena and Austin Theory was going to kick things off, but then they all said it's going to be an event. What's very frustrating with WWE and can be confusing is that they kind of throw the term main event out a lot. You know, I've heard JBL say that he's main evented multiple WrestleManias. You know, Rey Mysterio just last night at the Hall of Fame said that he main evented WrestleMania. If you're talking about a featured match, a marquee match, a match that they promote as a focal point to drive home for the show, that is, I think, the way they define main event now. But I think conventionally, and the way most fans think of it, the main event is whatever match is happening last on the show, right? And I was trying to do the math earlier, is like there's only been 38 main events, but there's actually been 41 main events now because there's 2-night WrestleManias. That whatever goes on last, that's the real main event. So I think when they say that like John Cena and Austin Theory is one of the main events, I think what they mean is that that's one of the marquee matches, that's one of the matches that people are looking forward to seeing on the show. And I would say, as far as the company goes, they look at that as a main event, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte as a main event, Roman and Cody, and the tag team titles. That those are the four, and I guess maybe Logan Paul and Seth Rollins because of the celebrity thing, but those are like the ones that they're kind of showing off as ones that could end the show if they so wanted to. The Intercontinental title match I know is also one that I'm very excited for. I don't think that's going to main event, but I know that at some point in the last few months that was also rumored to maybe main event night one. That's going to be happening tomorrow on WrestleMania Sunday instead. But it's one of those political issues. You know, I think when you have two nights of WrestleMania, it's similar to when they had two world titles that, you know, when Stone Cold Steve Austin was main eventing, he won the Royal Rumble 3 times. That was less about let's put over Stone Cold Steve Austin 3 times, and that was more about he's going to main event WrestleMania, and the winner of the Royal Rumble main events WrestleMania, so he's going to win it because that's how we get there. And the only reason he didn't win it more is because they realized that was going to get repetitive, which is why Vince McMahon 1 year, but then he ended up losing and Stone Cold was in the main event anyway. When they had 2 titles, you can say, well, Roman Reigns is going to be in the actual main event. He doesn't need to win the Royal Rumble. We can have whoever's going to wrestle for the other title win the Royal Rumble. So it had a more element of excitement and things like that. There's a similar thing now happening with WrestleMania, is that you know that Cody versus Roman is going to be the last match on one of the 2 days.
Right.
And it's going to be on Sunday. So what can main event the night before? It could be anything. I think in regards to the Royal Rumble, it makes sense that you have 2 nights, you have 2 Royal Rumble, winner of the women's main events one night, winner of the men's main events another night. And as far as the Royal Rumble goes, I agree with that. Like, I understand that. And I think it does kind of take things away when they don't. I remember when Alberto Del Rio won the Royal Rumble in 2011. Mm-hmm. He started the show. I remember feeling like, well, that kind of sucks. Like, you win the Royal Rumble, the biggest Royal Rumble ever. That was the 40-man one. And then he's not even, he's curtain jerking. You know, and then Sheamus did the same thing the next year when he won the Royal Rumble. That it feels like it kind of took some of the polish off of the heavyweight championship. I don't know what they're planning to do. I know that most people think it's either going to be Rhea and Charlotte or the tag titles. Personally, I think the match that people are most excited to see is the tag title match. And the way I always look at a card or look at a show is that whatever the match on the show that people want to see the most, that should go on last. Last year, Stone Cold Steve Austin was not announced for a match, but he was going to be there, and there was speculation, right? No one was going to leave that building until they saw Stone Cold Steve Austin, saw what was going to happen. So that was in the main event. You know, right. I was working a show at
Sammy, if I could just interrupt you on that.
Yeah.
Because you were there live, I'm curious because at home, the pacing of that I felt was a little off. Like, you weren't like it didn't feel, I don't know, there was just something off about it. It didn't feel right. Being there live, how did it come off?
For the the Stone Cold Steve Austin
for that
match.
Stone Cold match, because it was just really weird. Like KO was having his talk show, and then he was going to have Stone Cold. I don't know.
Yeah.
The pacing of it didn't feel right, but I obviously when it got to the match, it was great.
Well, the impression I get is that they offered Stone Cold a match, and he was, for the first time, not against it, or maybe he pitched it. I don't know. They had a WrestleMania 24, a WWE 24, like come out about that. I haven't watched that yet, so I don't know if that's acknowledged in that or not. I doubt it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the lines, if you can read between them, is that Austin wasn't sure if he was going to have a match, or maybe he wasn't sure if it was going to be any good. Because I know that Stone Cold would not have wanted to come back unless he knew like he could deliver. So they didn't want to promote it as a match. Because I think if they knew 100% that they were going to wrestle, they would have said something.
Mm-hmm.
But all the way up until the show, they weren't sure about it. So it was one of those kind of weird vibes in the show, because that was also the one where Seth Rollins was facing someone that we didn't know who was going to be either. So there was a lot of kind of question marks about what was going to happen on WrestleMania last year. We knew Charlotte versus Ronda Rousey. We knew Bianca versus Becky. And then we knew Seth is going to wrestle someone, and that Kevin Owens was going to do an interview with Steve Austin. So it feels like, well, that kind of feels kind of underwhelming. So they've got to be planning something bigger. It's got to be more than that, right?
Right.
So I know that in the building, it was electric, that everyone kind of had that feeling, especially after Cody came out, that it's got to be that he's wrestling, right? Especially if it's going to be the main event. Because it was the last two segments were Charlotte and Rhea, and then the KO show. So there was this kind of vibe of, well, if they put Ronda and Charlotte last, then it might not, it's going to be just an interview. But if they put the interview in the main event, it's got to be a match. Like, that's got to be what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it was this kind of weird, like, wait and see how the show goes, you know? Like, sometimes, you know, I'm sure you guys have your thing where, like, you kind of fantasy book or you predict matches. Like, a lot of times it feels like, well, I don't know, because it really depends on who goes on first. Like, it depends on if this match happens before this and things like that, you know? Like, a lot of people were saying, like, even the Usos versus Kevin and Sammy in my main event night one, but then it's like, well, yeah, but that's just assuming that it is on night one, you know? Right. But that didn't get announced till what, like 2 or 3 days ago?
Yeah, exactly. So I know Ellie was just coming back in. She was having some technical difficulties. I think we might have fixed the delay. Ellie?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no lag now. So, yeah, I think we're good to go. So Sammy was making some really good points, and I would love to hear what your thoughts on this. But he was saying no matter really who is the last match, because of some of the matches and the caliber of these matches, it almost, Sammy, am I getting this right? It almost doesn't matter where they fall in line in place.
Yeah, it's the way the shows are so long now, they'll be referenced for their significance in the you know, the story of the show for years to come. You know, I know that like Undertaker versus Batista at WrestleMania 23 was considered like the show stealer, and when they talk about that, they go like that was the main event of the you know, like that was a WrestleMania main event. That went on, I think, like 3rd or 4th from the bottom. You know, it was like in the middle of the show. And I remember hearing reports about Batista like being pissed that, like, you know, they thought they were like, you know, this is the streak versus the title. This should go on last. And not only are they not going on last, they're going on in the middle. And they wanted to separate things, you know, and have Cena and Shawn Michaels in the main event. But it's one of those, I think no matter what happens at WrestleMania, it's such a big show and the moments can be spread out so much now, the way they pace it. It doesn't really matter where things fall. I think it just matters if there is a match that people really, really want to see, that's what should go on last. Hogan and Rock, like whatever is going to get the most energy out of the audience. You don't want to go put that on earlier because then it ruins it for everybody afterwards, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I think Ellie might riot if Rhea and Charlotte don't close night one tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think the culmination of the action should be at the end. For one, from a business standpoint, how do you keep the viewership engaged on television? and then you want to leave the people with the biggest thing, you want to leave that lasting impression, the biggest one that you've got. To me, Rhea Ripley and Charlotte, I am super excited, but the biggest interest in the middle. You're really just cutting your legs off, or what do they say? Cutting your nose off to spite your face. I don't think that's a good deal. Sorry, you guys, can you hear me again?
I can hear you fine.
You're breaking up a little bit, but it's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Gotta love technology. It's great when it works, and when I can hear you. Technology is great when it works, and when it doesn't, you just want to break something. So, but I'm really wanting the ladies to close out the show. I think it'll be great if they do.
See, I think I might disagree with you guys, and that's just again a personal thing. To me, when I was at WrestleMania last year, I was working the New Texas show that was the independent show that was happening right after the show. We were just a few blocks away. We were doing a show that once WrestleMania was over, you could walk over and watch our show. So I'm watching WrestleMania. I'm in the building, and I'm looking at my watch, thinking like, I gotta go to work. I can't leave here and then jump in the headset. So I'm debating whether or not I want to leave. And it's getting close to the show, and it's either it's Ronda and Charlotte, and there's Stone Cold Steve Austin and KO. And I'm telling myself, if Stone Cold Steve Austin comes back and has a match for the first time since WrestleMania 19, and I don't watch it, I'm gonna kick myself, for years to come. I can miss Ronda versus Charlotte. I want to see Ronda versus Charlotte, but if I have to because I got to go do a show, I'll be able to live with myself, right? I don't know if I'd be able to tell myself like it's all right if Stone Cold wrestles for the first time and the only time he might not ever wrestle again. So it was like the one time, you don't want to do that. So when I saw that was going on last, I'm like, I got to stay, So the entire time that match was happening, I'm like at the door, like waiting, so I can go do my show. But I think that was the biggest part of why that was put on the main event, not just because it kind of told a story that there's got to be more to this because it's the last match, but because they knew everyone in the building was anticipating that. So that's last. You don't want anyone leaving during your main event. It's different from than like the Rock Hogan thing or the Shawn Michaels Undertaker things, where those were matches that stole the show in the sense that everything that happened after it couldn't follow it. But people wanted to see Triple H versus Chris Jericho. People wanted to see Triple H versus Randy Orton. Like they were interested in those stories. So no one was like willing to leave. But I remember there were stories a few years ago. What was it? That Backlash show where they put on Roman and Samoa Joe in the main event, and people were leaving because there was no title. It was one of those first shows where Lesnar was champion, and people were just not interested in that main event, that they were leaving during the show. And you don't want that to happen, right? Mm-hmm. And I think when you've got shows that are so long, you've got to consider those kinds of things. I think that a testament is that there are a lot of matches on this show that could main event. Like I think you could put Rhea versus Charlotte in the main event, the tag titles in the main event. I think you could even put Cena versus Austin Theory in the main event because I think people are excited to see John Cena wrestle again. He hasn't wrestled at WrestleMania in a while. So I think it's really cool that they have so many options. To me, though, if you look at television, the thing that has been main eventing the show since September is Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. Like that's been the main event of WWE. That if that's what they feel they want to end every show on Raw, SmackDown for months and months and months, it makes sense to put that on in the last match. The problem with that though is that if they know that, then they don't really need it. It's that whole thing where I hear people say like they don't need the title, they don't need the win. Who needs the win? Like you could put something else in the main event because it gives them kind of the nod. But I also it's my philosophy that it's not about who needs to win, it's that who is the main event. Whatever is the main event should be the main event, regardless of you know, who needs it or who could benefit from it more. So
Absolutely.
I know
Well,
I rant and talk a lot, so
no, Sammy, that's why it's great to have you on. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening tonight. I don't know what I'm looking forward to the most tonight. Obviously, I know what I'm looking forward to the most for tomorrow. It's a lot of hours of wrestling. You know, you got the Hall of Fame last night. You had the Battle Royal last night. Ellie, what were some of your favorite moments from the Battle Royal last night? I know you were pretty invested and you were really enjoying that.
Yeah. So again, I have ADHD, so my short-term memory is not great. So names don't stick with me. But the big guy who got pushed out. Who was that, Tony? Who am I thinking of? Read my brain.
Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed? Or are you talking about Otis?
No. Otis. When Otis got pushed out. No, somebody picked him up.
Was it Otis? No, I can't. I'm trying to. There were so many guys in that match last night.
I tried to take notes.
You know, it's weird. I know that like the weight maximum on WWE has changed. There are a lot of smaller guys, but there were a lot of big guys in that Battle Royal. You got Braun Strowman, you know, Bobby Lashley, Otis, Bronson Reed, Karrion Kross. You know, Otis got dumped out, and you could hear the crowd be very disappointed by that. I remember that.
Yeah,
so
it looked painful.
Johnny Gargano was pulling some moves last night in that match. And I was really shocked because you don't usually see those kind of moves in a Royal Rumble Battle Royal kind of match with so many guys in the ring. I mean, some of those
it's hard to find the space for those kinds of things. I saw when he did that through the rope, like kind of spear, or when he, you know, kind of thing. When he did it to Santos Escobar, and it almost felt like Santos didn't know what was coming at him. So like that looked kind of awkward, but I thought it was great. You know, I love it when moves don't go the way that they're supposed to, but it looks, you know, awesome because it, you know, it's supposed to be a real fight. So, you know, it's like even if it doesn't go the way they planned it or they wanted it to, it looks more realistic, I think, sometimes that way.
Absolutely. I took notes. I took a few notes. So it was one of the brutes that had picked up Bronson Reed. He attempted to pick him up and he had him on his shoulders. To me, I love wrestling for these types of things, these feats of strength and the gymnastics. That's why I love Charlotte so much. I mean, and between her and Rhea, that's going to be amazing. But I really enjoy watching these big, huge men just pick each other up, or like the small guys. And there was a crazy DDT that had happened by Johnny Gargano.
Yeah.
That was insane. And then seeing the guy just pick him up and just slam him down, I know a few people I want to do that too. I'm going to be practicing that on my bed.
Sammy, so in a match like that, you being in the industry, how are guys communicating in the ring so guys aren't just like bumping it? You know, they're not messing each other up.
Well, I know that a Battle Royal is very different than a Royal Rumble. You know, Royal Rumbles are kind of formatted when the guys come in one at a time. You can sort of see the ring kind of clears to kind of let everybody get like a little moment to shine whenever they first hit the ring. But it's also formatted differently in the sense that there's a lot of time to kind of go over, whereas a Battle Royal, everyone kind of starts at the beginning. It's just a lot of brawling. You don't really see a lot of those kinds of specific moments until more and more bodies kind of get thrown out of the ring. And it really just depends on who they want to have at the end, who they want to kind of spotlight. You know, I always picked up on when I was a young kid that once you start seeing someone like get their stuff in, almost be worried, because you know they usually give kind of shine the light on the people that aren't winning, because they need to get something. The person who's winning doesn't really need anything shined on them, because they're going to get their moment once the match is over, because their hand's going to be raised. So once you start seeing guys like Johnny Gargano, like they start doing all these moves, I was like, well, sorry, Johnny, guess you're leaving soon. Yeah. And then that's what ends up happening. But it just I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of communication going on, but it's also just kind of a feeling it out. You'd be surprised how much in wrestling a lot of the communication is going like you've seen wrestling before, right? Like how this works, right? And you goes like, oh yeah, like yeah, just go with it, like feel it out, vibe with it, I know people have used the word like it's like a dance, and that's what I think they mean by that is that it's not that it's not physical, and I think that's why people kind of start to get away from that metaphor because it implies that like it's not a physical, painful sport. It is. It's that if you're dancing with someone, you don't tell your dance partner literally what you're going to do. They know, you feel it out. You communicate without communicating, if that makes sense.
Intuitive.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
so it's more like that.
Well, if you're just joining us, we've had some technical difficulties, but welcome to the show. We're doing a special episode today, and with the voice of Wildkat Sports out of Texas, Sammy Kiss, Ellie G, Tony Twist. Happy Saturday, everybody. It's WrestleMania weekend out of Los Angeles.
I'm so excited too. I would like to say like I'm so confused. I'm all over the place. Sometimes I have to ask where I'm at. I am in Louisiana right now. Wildkat Sports is out of New Orleans. We were closed during the pandemic, which was a blessing in disguise because it gave me a lot of opportunities to do some stuff in Texas. So I'm in Texas, but I'm out of New Orleans with Wildkat Sports. WrestleMania is in LA this year. There's so much great wrestling going on right now. The best part about WrestleMania, which I always hate when I miss it, is that there's so much to do. There's so much to see. If you've never been to WrestleMania, you have to go, not just to see WrestleMania, but to be in the biggest wrestling event, because there's hundreds of wrestling shows going on right now. And that's not to even just talk about, Ring of Honor and AAA and WrestleCon and all these other promotions and stuff, but like all the local wrestling promotions, like everybody who's anybody tries to be working and doing wrestling matches during that weekend because the world of wrestling is there. You've got fans from every corner of the planet converging on one spot in the country every year just to watch wrestling. So it's very exciting,
Sammy, I think you might have somebody maybe in your neck of the woods that looks like a New Orleans or Louisiana reference there.
Yeah.
Oh,
former Tangipahoa Parish resident. Yeah, Tangipahoa. All right, yeah. I'm over in St. Tammany Parish, so good to see you. Yeah. There's a lot of it's a common YouTube clip I've seen of people trying to read different cities in Louisiana. So
at first I was trying to read the comment. I was like, okay, this sounds like maybe New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yeah, that was that is pronounced Tangipahoa. So yeah,
there will be a quiz after this show. So
okay, there you go. Yeah.
So, anyways, let's get back to Saturday night WrestleMania. Ellie, sounds like you got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Sammy, what are you looking forward to the most tonight, or for the whole
tonight,
weekend?
Man? So I've been a supporter of Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, and Sami Zayn for as long as I can remember. So I'm really excited about them finally getting like their just desserts, on the main. It's no surprise that Triple H is in charge now. Now Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have been put in the spot that they're in. But also the Usos, for years and years, the Usos were unofficially kind of the kings of the pre-show. Like they couldn't make it onto the WrestleMania no matter what. I mean, even the current reign they're on, the WWE SmackDown Tag Team titles that they won from Dominic and Rey Mysterio, they won on the pre-show for Money in the Bank in 2021. Like they are just a team that they've always been kind of counted on to do what they need and always have an awesome match, and they don't need to be on the WrestleMania card necessarily. There are a lot of WrestleManias, and when you're at WrestleMania, if you're wrestling in that ring inside of a stadium, you've got the set, you've got that huge crowd, even if they're just starting to get there, it feels like you got to wrestle at WrestleMania even if you're on the pre-show. But the thing about that is that if you go on Peacock right now and you put on WrestleMania 32, That doesn't include the pre-show. So you'll go, where are the Usos? WrestleMania this, where are the Usos? You know, like, as great as it is to be there in the moment, you're not actually on the show in terms of the history of it. And that's what I always think about WrestleMania in particular, is that that's the show where you can be immortalized because people are going to watch WrestleMania for years and years and years after. So those four guys finally kind of getting the spotlight on them. You know, they might be in the main event. They might not be. You know, we'll find out after tonight happens. But I mean, even if they're not in the last match, they're definitely in one of the main events of the show. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's great. So I'm looking forward to that. I think the most.
I don't know if I want them to close out the show. I think it would be great for them to close out the show. But I totally get what you're saying about the pacing and setting the matches and where they're at, and is not as important as it used to be. So when it was a one-night show, like that main event, like, you know, Stone Cold versus The Rock, or Hogan versus The Rock, or Triple H versus The Undertaker, like all eyes were on that. And because it's a two-night show, I do kind of get what you mean by that.
I mean, even
doesn't matter if it closes the show now. But I'm old school. I'm old school, and in a way, I kind of feel like it does. But you know, I get your side of the argument.
No, I still think that who main events matters, but the point is that I don't think the company looks at it the same way that they used to. Like when one of the most controversial, match decisions I think ever in WrestleMania was when Triple H beat Booker T at WrestleMania 19. You know, because of the story that they were building, it felt really messed up that Booker T didn't beat Triple H at that show. And from what has basically been surmised is that they didn't want to take away from the moment of Brock Lesnar winning the title in the main event. You know, Brock Lesnar is going to beat Kurt Angle, become WWE champion. You don't want to have another title change earlier on the show. They don't have that sentiment anymore. You know, you could have a title change in every single match, and the way the show is paced, everyone will get their moment. Like, it'll be a big deal. Like, I don't think anyone's going to think like, oh, well, this title's not going to change now because it's the first match at WrestleMania or it's in the middle of WrestleMania. You could have that big moment anywhere it happens on the show. And that's part of the reason why they pace it that way, so that every moment feels like it's its own big thing. It's kind of separate and protected from the rest of the card, from the rest of the show. Everything kind of stands out on its own. That causes it to feel like a long show. That's a caveat to that. And that's why we now have 2 nights of WrestleMania, because they have to pace it out, because even with 2 shows that only have 7 matches on them, they're both still probably going to be 4 hours long, and you still couldn't fit, we talked about the Battle Royal on them. So it has its pros and its cons.
Absolutely.
Who's your favorite entrance?
Oh, man. I'm sure that, I don't know. So I'm very excited for Rey Mysterio versus Dominic. And Rey almost always dresses up as some kind of superhero reference at WrestleMania. And I'm wondering if he's going to do something different because of the personal nature of this rivalry he has with Dominic, or not. I'm expecting something from Dominic, though. I'm guessing that he's going to come out in like a lowrider or dressed in some kind of Eddie Guerrero kind of outfit. So I'm anticipating something like that. So I think the entrances for Dominic and Rey are going to be like something kind of over the top. And I'm sure Rhea and Charlotte will also have some kind of like big posture. They only do it for a couple of matches every show. I remember last year the Bianca Becky Lynch match was great in terms of like the kind of pomp and circumstance they had for everybody come out. So it'll be interesting to see who they kind of give it to, especially when they're in Hollywood. I saw the preview of the set. It looks amazing. I think it's going to be one of the best looking WrestleManias ever. And that's saying something, because there are a lot of really good WrestleManias, but I think this might be the best one so far.
What about all time, would you say?
Go ahead.
All time.
Yeah.
I was at WrestleMania 25. So with the Shawn Michaels, where he's in the white, kind of descending from on high, that one stands out to me because of the symmetry of him in all white, low, descending, and then Undertaker in all black, kind of coming up from the stage. That one stands out a lot. Oh man, people don't like to crap on it, but to me, I really liked John Cena's gangster entrance because I was a big CM Punk fan. So I recognized CM Punk as one of the gangsters on his car. So that was just like, I was like, this is the best thing ever, you know. Even though it felt like, you know, because that was the first one where Triple H started dressing up in his kind of king outfit.
Yeah.
And that's the one where he looks the most like Conan the Barbarian. So I don't know. It feels a little hokey at the time, but when I look back on it now, I like it a lot more. That was the first King of Kings entrance. The best, I think his best entrance definitely was WrestleMania 30, though. That's the one with the gold outfit, and you got the 3 girls behind him. And man, talk about hindsight now, because at the time that was Sasha Banks, Alexa Bliss, and Charlotte all dressed up, and they did like the WrestleMania 24 thing where they talk about how they could have just gotten anybody to do that. They could have gotten models. They could have, you know, they're under mask. It doesn't matter. But Triple H is like, no, I want to use people from NXT. And there's that line where it's like, don't worry, this won't be your last WrestleMania. You guys are going to be a big part of this, you know, in the future. And talk about a prophetic statement, you know. So it's just weird to see like them, like, you know, kind of behind that. Those are my favorite entrances where like you got to see that behind like what these people would become later, you know.
Yeah. I'm totally going to pile on, and I know it's Tony's as well, but Triple H's entrances are amazing.
Yeah.
It is so pomp and circumstance. It's so big. It's so, and the theme of it. I'm an artist by trade, so the theme that underlies every entrance that he has had with those King of Kings entrances is so perfect. And the vehicles, the cars, and hearing Lemmy in the back. Oh yeah, forget it.
He apparently had the one from WrestleMania 27. Apparently they wanted to use a horse, but they couldn't get it to cooperate at the day of the show, so they scratched it. But that's one of my favorites. That's disappointing when you look on it on the network because they had to change it because of music rights. But it's Triple H versus Undertaker, so you hear the gong go off, and everyone gets excited. The lights go out. But then you realize that it's not the Undertaker's gong; it's the gong from "For Whom the Bell Tolls" from Metallica.
Yeah.
You start reading like, oh, wait a minute, is Undertaker coming out to Metallica? No, it's Triple H playing. You know, kind of messing with the Undertaker. He's going to come out with the bell toll first.
Yeah.
And then Undertaker comes out later to Johnny Cash, "Ain't No Grave," and then neither of those entrances are like that at all now because they don't have the same music. I always think that's always disappointed. You know, those things where like you have to kind of seen them live when they just don't retain the music rights to them.
Yeah, because Hogan, when you go back and watch some of the Hogan stuff, when he would come out to Voodoo Child, I remember, I can't remember watching which one it was or which Mania or which event. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell is this music? It wasn't like anything. It was like some generic
it's a weird stock kind of like close, but really not the cigar kind of version. And I know when the first time I watched the Hogan versus Vince McMahon match, there's a really long like post-match thing where like the song almost loops for how long like the post-match is. Hogan's posing and Shane McMahon comes back for the first time since the WCW thing happened to come help his dad, like, you know, because he got beat up by Hulk Hogan. And the whole time I'm watching, I'm hearing Real American playing. And I realize, oh, wait, this is not what played. Like, this is supposed to be Voodoo Child. Like, I'm thinking, like, this moment, like, this music feels so... Because Real American, once it gets to the end and you hear, like, the background singers just, like, belting out, then, like, it's such a, like, visceral, strong song that really only it works with Hogan because he always kind of milks his moment after the match. Right. But it's such an 80s kind of like epic kind of vibe. I remember thinking like this moment is so great because of this music. And then I realized, oh, this is not the music. Like this is dubbed over music. Yeah. And then for whatever reason, now they don't even use that. Like it's a different verse. Like they had Voodoo Child, they changed to Real American on some versions. And then now on the network, they don't even have Real American, which is weird because you'd think that they would still own the rights to, those Jim Johnson based songs, but I don't know. I don't know the logistics on, licensed music is or not, but
you would think that WWE, would be able to pay that. That's
well, like imagine like
it creates a whole vibe and it's so signature to the people that are coming out. You would think, they would absolutely invest in that.
But it can happen at like all the Undertaker matches where he came out to Limp Bizkit. Most of
Rock.
those they're not playing. But like, imagine if at some point you go on to watch like CM Punk in Chicago, or no, actually the one in Chicago was, but like you start watching and it's supposed to be Cult of Personality, and then they just play some kind of generic music. You'd be like, that's what this isn't right, you know?
It ruins those moments in a way
Yeah.
because I
It's
love to go
distracting.
back. Yeah, I love to go back and watch matches, and now it starts to mess with my memory because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was at WrestleMania 18 with Rock and Hogan. I could have swore he came out to Voodoo Child, but now if you go back and watch it, it's the NWO Black and White, and I don't think he came out to that.
And you're like, and I can't, unless you find like some kind of like ripped version of someone that like recorded their pay-per-view that put it online, you're not going to be able to verify. You won't know. Like, it's like you just have to just trust your memory, because it's like the footage doesn't exist almost, unless WWE wants to put it out.
Well,
So,
I think it has something to do with Peacock and NBC.
Oh,
because
yeah.
when it was on the WWE network, they didn't do any of that. It was all the original music. It was all of it. Because I used to watch shit all the time, and now I think it's got to be something with Peacock. That
well, like imagine now if like if WWE has a falling out with The Weeknd next year, and then the last 4 WrestleManias all have to have a new theme song. You know?
Right? Yeah, because The Weeknd has done the theme song. But he's never actually showed up at WrestleMania, which
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. As far as musical performances, who do you think we could see being in LA? I mean, shit, anything.
You know, that's one of I always like. You know, the Hardy performance from the Royal Rumble this year, as an example. They spent so much time to try and build it up, and I can appreciate trying to go into the community and do things like that. I don't like the performances just for the sake of the performance. You know, whenever you're at a WrestleMania in particular, you'd think, well, this is like one of those moments where like people are from all over the country. There are a lot of casual fans that are like, I don't watch wrestling every day, but I'll go to WrestleMania. Like WrestleMania might be like the best example because there's so many people that like you have the best chance of like people being into like the halftime show kind of vibe. No, wrestling fans want to watch wrestling. You know, that's a very common thing. Like if you start doing stuff that's not wrestling, even people who aren't really wrestling fans are going like, let's get back to the wrestling.
Right.
But what I really like is when they have bands perform the entrance music of wrestlers when they come out. You know, Motorhead doing Triple H, Cult of Personality for CM Punk. You know, they had Rev Theory do Randy Orton at WrestleMania 30, which I think is an underappreciated entrance. His match, same show. The guy, I don't know what his name is, but the artist that did Bray Wyatt's original music, they did a live entrance for him.
I just saw it the other day. He's got, it's just like a name, like his name. It's not like a band. His name is Mark.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I have it.
If there's anyone in the chat, because we had some people in the chat. Usually we got some people on Sunday. They'll give us facts or they'll correct us and be like, oh, it was this or it was that. Mark Crozier, that's his name. Mark Crozier. Yep. Yeah. That's who did Bray Wyatt's song.
Yeah. And they had the great like voodoo entrance with like the fire dancers, and he had like the skull paint on, stuff like that. I thought that was a great entrance. So I'm looking forward to see what, you know, like maybe they'll do something for John Cena. They'll have like a live brass band playing his music or something like that. So I'm expecting a lot of that from Triple H, because again, this is Triple H's first WrestleMania, and if there's anyone that seems to appreciate and acknowledge about making the moment for WrestleMania and adding, you know, the big pomp to it, it's Triple H. So I'm expecting there to be a lot of unique kind of looks to a lot of people's entrances this year. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
All right, another question for you, Sammy. What could possibly steal the show day 1, day 2?
Man, so I know people don't want to hear this, and I think people need to accept it and just remove their preconceived thoughts about it.
I think
Logan Paul and Seth Rollins are going to have the match of the show. Logan Paul and Seth Rollins are going to have match of the show. I'm not saying that I want them to have the match. I want that to be for Logan Paul, but if you pretend that you don't know who he is, like pretend that Logan Paul is not an internet, just forget about that. And I know that it's people can't do that, but I'm just saying if you pretend that he is like made to be a wrestling heel. Like, he's made to be a wrestler. Like, he comes off like such a tool, and then is also super athletic. He's like a perfect bad guy, where you're like, I got to give you credit though, because that was impressive, but I still hate you. I still am going to boo you, even though I was impressed. It's like, yeah, that's what you want. You know, you don't want to be so good that people cheer for you, you know, but then you don't want to be bad that people don't want to watch you wrestle. You got to have like this balance, you know. I think a lot of people kind of, where you got to either be the Miz, where like people kind of crap on the Miz, say that like, you know, he's not, people don't, I think, look forward to the in-ring work of the Miz, whether he deserves that or not. And then there's guys like Seth Rollins, when he was a heel, that more often than not people were cheering the whole time anyway, because he's so impressive in what he does. You want to be somewhere kind of in the middle, and like it or not, Logan Paul is that guy in the middle. So I think that's the match that people are going to be talking about. But there's a lot of solid stuff. I think Dominic and Rey Mysterio, I think Rey Mysterio is going to make a point to have his son look as amazing as possible. He's going to be working his ass off to make that match like one for the ages. I think everyone here in this show is going to have their working boots on to like steal the show, which, you know, I'm very excited. It's like it's like an NXT takeover in the sense of that sentiment. And I don't want, you know, it's WrestleMania, that should be expected, but like, it's got that vibe of like these matches all feel like they're put together where, I mean, other than maybe Omos and Brock, I feel everyone's going to be having a match where you can feel like they're trying to have like the greatest match ever. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting from the show, which is going to, you know, be interesting to see who actually gets to do it.
Now, you talk about Brock and Omos. His name has been pronounced so many different ways.
Yeah.
Do you think this match will be worth a damn?
You know, well, like, you know, people talk about like Andre and Hogan being like a terrible match. I don't think it's a terrible match. It's the match that you would expect it to be. You're not going to get. I think people need to temper their expectations when they see something. Omos versus Brock Lesnar is going to be Omos versus Brock Lesnar. Like, what do you think it's going to be? It's probably what it's going to be. And that's maybe not your cup of tea in the sense of like what you look for, but I think people should judge things for what they are and not what they want them to be. Because this is going to be a show that has something for everyone. And I think there's plenty of room to have, you know, a monster mash amongst the sea of matches that I think could steal the show in terms of work rate. You know, like tomorrow, Cody and Roman will be all about the story, no pun intended. You know, Sheamus, Gunther, and Drew will be stiff and just laying, you know, throwing as much as they can. And then you've got, like I said, Logan Paul and Seth Rollins. You've got, you know, the Usos. You've got the 2 women's title matches. There's room for Brock to just pick up a big guy and be like, wow, he picked up a big guy, you know. Like, I would be surprised if they don't do something impressive, you know. I know I've even thought, like, maybe they'll do something with the ring, but I don't know if Brock is going to be up for that. Apparently Brock might be leaving. So it really depends on Brock. Depends on how motivated Brock Lesnar is or not. Is he feeling like this is AJ Styles in terms of he wants to do something, or is he feeling like it's Dean Ambrose where he's like, nah, I'm all right. We'll see.
It's always an interesting. You brought up a good point. When guys might be headed out the door, there's rumor that Drew McIntyre's contract is close to being up too. He could be heading out the door. What kind of surprises? Now you talk about who could steal tonight. Going back to Seth Rollins and Logan Paul. Sorry, I'm a little bit all over the place. If anybody can carry Logan Paul for them to have just a 5-star match, it's going to be Seth.
Yeah,
for sure, hands down.
That has become an MVP.
I am looking forward to that match. I can't stand Logan Paul. So I hope Seth curb stomps him at least 3 or 4 times. Hopefully, we'll see. But anyways, what kind of surprises? Who could we see come back? I know there's been all this anticipation. There was all this buildup for, I don't know, the last couple years that The Rock was going to face Roman at Hollywood, WrestleMania. I don't think that's going to happen, but it looked like The Rock's movie career might be over now. So maybe he is going to show back up in the WWE. Like, are we in for The Rock as a surprise at Mania, or could anyone else show up?
I agree with what Triple H said at the Rumble press conference, that The Rock is someone that if he's going to be back, he would want to be back. Like, he would want to be there to put whoever he's putting over. And I mean, I think if he's going to come back, he's going to want to do it for Roman. And I don't think he would want to be back just to have one or two appearances. He would want to be back to do the full thing. So I think he's open to it. I mean, because I know that The Rock, for, you know, the politician that he is, really does still love wrestling. It's just fitting it into his schedule, because it's a lot of time between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania and things like that. Right. Could he come back? Sure. You could have Rock come back at the end and challenge Roman to a match at next year's WrestleMania for WrestleMania 40 if they wanted to. I just feel like if Rock comes back, it would be to fight Roman, and if he was going to fight Roman, this feels like when they would have done it. So does that mean that he's never going to wrestle again? I don't know. I know that he got injured and messed up and looked like he was having a rough time the last time he wrestled in the main event of WrestleMania, and that was 10 years ago. So, you know, I'm more expecting something from Stone Cold Steve Austin, because that interview he did for like the video game, he is in better shape now than I think I've ever seen Stone Cold Steve. Like, his arms look freaking ridiculous. So after what happened last year, you know, he says that he's just training to look good. I don't believe that for a second. I think he's training to have a match. Will he have a special surprise match? Maybe. But I expect him to come out and stunner somebody, something like that. So I feel like, you know, if it were me, I would see like LA Knight come out and say, you know, hey, you can't have WrestleMania without LA Knight. And then he calls out somebody, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out. And then you can get a what, yeah, you know, off, you know, or whatever. Something like that.
You think that could be tonight, or you think that would be tomorrow? I think that would probably be tonight.
Well, it depends, because I know that there's 7 matches tonight, and there's 6 tomorrow. So they might add another match tomorrow based on something that happens today. I know that people were thinking Lashley might be added to the show. I don't know now, because he won the Battle Royal, if that Battle Royal was what they gave Lashley. Mm-hmm. It's possible that, I know Becky said that she wanted to defend the tag title, so maybe she'll have their match and they'll wrestle, you know, tomorrow night. I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not. So we'll see. There's room. There definitely is going to be something, but the great thing about surprisingly, I don't know, you know, because there's also the Raw after WrestleMania, you know, there's Big E. There's a lot of things that they could do and have under wraps. We'll see though. We'll see. I'm wonderfully excited that if there are no surprises at all, I won't be disappointed, because I'm excited for what we know we're going to get. Yeah. You know?
I have a quick question, and this might not be interesting to you, but it is to me. Going back to The Rock, with all of his kind of bad press that he's been having, do you think that the fan sentiment would be against him? And if it was, do you think he could make that work? Do you think he's so good, because he is killer on the mic? Do you think that they would turn on him? And if they did, do you think he could make it work and become the guy?
It's weird when he so when The Rock first started making movies, he kind of would have his toe in and out of WWE. Like, he'd be here, and then without really any acknowledgement or announcement, there would be months where he wasn't in WWE. Back when it was WWF, and that was before. Like, you get used to it now. Like Brock Lesnar's schedule, you know, The Rock would come in. There are a lot of wrestlers, Logan Paul. There are a lot of people that kind of show up for just a little bit, and then they're not there, and then they show up. That was very uncommon during the Attitude Era. Mm-hmm. And it's only just now, I mean, even still now, that fans kind of have acclimated to not booing people who aren't around full time. I mean, the whole basis of the John Cena Rock story was Rock is not here. He came back, said, I'm never going away again. And then he left again, is what Cena said. And now Cena's that, and Cena's done interviews where he said, like, I shouldn't have said that about The Rock because now that's what John Cena does. But John Cena, people have actually grown to appreciate his legacy, that now people actually are happy for him when he comes back. It's one of those things where it could be either way, but I know that when The Rock I bring that when he first left, that they did a Raw 10th anniversary show and they advertised that The Rock was going to be there, and The Rock sent like a taped video instead. So people were upset that he wasn't really there. Mm-hmm. And he kind of did like a video where he said the millions and kind of like anticipated the crowd going along with it. And they didn't. They booed him and stuff like that. And everyone was like, "Whoa, what's going on with this?" And they ended up. He became like Hollywood Rock. Like they turned him heel not long after that. And I remember this interview they did with Paul Heyman where it was kind of like a news story where people were talking like, "Hey, people were booing The Rock. Like this is supposed to be the biggest good guy. Like what do you guys do? Like they're rejecting your top guy." Right. And Paul Heyman was like, "Well, yeah, that's a heel." Like he immediately was like, "This is not a big deal. Like if they boo him, just put him in the other spot." So I think, if they're using Logan Paul, I don't think they're concerned about that kind of thing necessarily. I just saw Ric Flair at the Hall of Fame, Vince McMahon and his mustache are around. This is a company that, as is with wrestling, has a lot of skeletons in his closet that they will weather the storm and try to move past those kinds of things. To put the spotlight on what they want to focus on and just think about what they want to show you and not worry about the negative sides of things. That I would assume that that's what they would do. If they can get The Rock to do a program, they will have The Rock do a program. And if he gets booed, they'll just put him in the position of being a heel. I mean, The Rock got booed out of the building in WrestleMania 17. He got booed out of the building in WrestleMania 18. And that was when he was supposed to be the top good guy in the company. This whole Cena's this first guy that people's like, no, everybody, they were booing Hulk Hogan back in 1990. This is what wrestling fans do. The second that this is the guy the company holds in front of you and goes you should cheer him, the crowd goes, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Well, I'm worried that they'll do that for Cody, but I actually am very happy for Cody that that the crowd has been with him. That he's been mostly cheered on in this position. Whether or not that'll change, but I also think Cody would be a great villain as well. So I think if they do start to shift on him, they can switch him, and then it'll be great. Just like Roman. Once they finally did it with Roman, shocker, it's great. So.
Well, Sammy, I know you're short on time, and I know you gotta take off. If you could just one more thing, man, you kind of segued us right into it. Is it time for Roman Reigns to relinquish the title? Is Cody going to be the man? Do we see it happening, or are we going to be a little disappointed when Roman raises his hand tomorrow night? What's your prediction on that? And then we'll let you run.
I think Roman has been champion for so long that whoever beats him needs to feel like a changing of the guard, and Cody feels like the changing of the guard. Drew would not have been a changing of the guard, and as much as people wanted Sammy to beat him, and even now people speculating that maybe, and it still might happen that if Roman retains and then drop it to Jey Uso is not going to be the new top guy in WWE. Mm-hmm. Sami Zayn's not going to be the new top guy in WWE. It would be great, but they're not going to be those guys. Cody Rhodes could be that guy, and if Cody Rhodes is going to win the title, he should win the title now. He got injured. He won the Royal Rumble. People are they're complicating this because it feels predictable. Predictable is not bad. Anytime you watch a movie, you see Luke Skywalker's, he's going to blow up the Death Star. It's the good guy's going to win. You know that going in. That's not a bad story because you see the good guy beating the bad guy. That's how it's supposed to be. So I don't think they need to mess with that just for that. I understand the whole 1,000 days. I think in terms of pettiness, as much as anything else, I think even though he's been Universal Champion for the longest time, he hasn't been WWE Champion for the longest time, and maybe they want him to break CM Punk's record of being the longest champ since Hulk Hogan. But I think that's a stupid reason to keep a title with somebody. He's already been touted as the longest reigning champion in however long. The time has come. I think he goes down on Sunday.
And on that note, Sammy Kiss, the first 4-time guest on ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, thanks for being on, man. We know you're real busy. Big things happening with Wildkat Sports.
Yeah.
Tell our audience where to find you, what events are coming up, where can we see you?
Well, yeah, I'm super busy. We've got my next show will be next Saturday in Pasadena for New Texas Pro. So you guys come check us out. But Wildkat Sports out of New Orleans, we just had tickets go on sale yesterday for our next event on May 20th in River Ridge, which is just outside of New Orleans. So if you're in the New Orleans area, definitely come check us out. Brian Keith, PJ Hawks, all your favorite Wildkat wrestlers. We already announced Danny Flamingo's wrestling for the heavyweight title. It's going to be a big show. I'm so happy. I'm so busy now going from Texas and Louisiana, stuff like that. But it's great to be busy. This is a business that you want to be as busy as possible. I actually am trying to be busier than I even am. So I'm glad I was able to take the time to come on here and talk to you guys. I know that I can ramble and go on at the mouth, but I love wrestling. And I think that's why everyone tunes into you guys, because they love wrestling too. And I'm excited to watch WrestleMania with you guys. But yeah, May 20th for Wildkat Sports. You can see me on _Sammy_Kiss. Almost all social media stuff if you want to come find me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you for being on, man. Have a great weekend. Enjoy WrestleMania. Ellie G and I are going to be closing out the show, having a few more conversations about some matches. But Sammy, have yourself a wonderful day, man. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Well, that was fun. I know we had some technical difficulties there, but hey, we're going to keep this rolling. We're wrapping it up. Sorry, Ellie. Technology. Last week we had no hiccups, no anything. This week it's like I was having problems. You were having problems. I adjusted some settings, and it's like, whatever. It was fun. Sammy's always great to have on. He loves wrestling, and I love talking to people that are in the industry because it's always great to hear their perspective and how they see things. And Absolutely. I know you missed part of our conversation and what we were talking about. It was more like the pacing of the show and how things were going to really line up for tonight and how they always kind of make last minute changes. So
yeah, I love all the predictions, things like that, because you just never know what they're going to do really at the end of the day until it happens. And I think that it does happen where they change things out last minute. And I think that's just so exciting. The whole show is exciting, from the entrances and all their beautiful. I like watching it on TV. I don't think I would like watching it in person because you get to see all those little extras on the screen when they project the different logos and things like that. I'm so excited from top to bottom to see what happens. I'm a casual viewer, so it's really cool to have someone like Sammy on for the reasons that you're saying. They have a different perspective, and for someone like me who I really like the behind the scenes stuff, the technical things. Teach me what you know, and that's how I enjoy it most. I'm really ready for Roman Reigns to be out of there, though. I am so. I don't get the idea.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to say, because we just ended that with Sammy. Sammy pretty much saying Cody's going to be the guy. It's time to pass the torch. Is WWE going to pull a fast one on us and Roman keep those titles, or is he losing tomorrow night?
I don't get why it's such a feather in the cap about having the title the longest. That just tells me you got nothing else to write. It just gets so played out and so boring as a story. Give me something fresh. Give me something new, even if it's with the same people. I can't get behind it. He's got to lose. I love seeing his face on that screen, but man, he's got to go. Give me something new. Give me something fresh.
And that's a great point, because there could be so many more fresh storylines. So Cody goes over, he wins. It opens up a door for so many different rivalries because you haven't seen it. And it would be great. I mean, because your next one is SummerSlam, right? So what's going to be the big buildup between end of Mania? You know, we start all over again, and then we're heading right into, you know, SummerSlam, which is typically in August. It's going to be live from Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field.
Yay.
ATW will be in the house. We're going to be chilling in a suite, watching SummerSlam. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to Cody becoming the guy, becoming the face of the company. I'm going to be pretty disappointed if he doesn't win. And if Roman keeps those titles, I just don't know where the hell they go next.
Exactly. How are you going to keep it fresh? How are you going to keep people engaged? It's already boring. You can't just keep beating the same dead horse, you know, but we'll see.
Well, being a casual fan, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was say, being a casual fan, there's a lot of rumors who could show up tonight. Bad Bunny seems to be a guy that has popped up at the last few WrestleManias. Being that they are in LA, Snoop Dogg is a guy that's rumored to pop up somewhere. I could really give two shits about Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in Los Angeles. You're going to have movie stars. You're going to have famous people. I mean, it's going to be a who's who. There's so many people that are wrestling fans. Hugh Jackman is a guy that has showed up at some big wrestling events. Yeah, he showed up at some WrestleManias. He's a wrestling fan.
Isn't he getting all jacked for the next Wolverine right now?
Yeah, so you could see Ryan Reynolds. You could see Hugh Jackman. We could see Rob Gronkowski. He's usually a guy to pop up, football player, former New England Patriot.
I'm glad you said so. I was like, who the hell's that?
I mean, you never know who's going to show up. I'm always excited for WrestleMania because, yeah, I always, you know, it's great to see some big surprises. Could we see some wrestlers that have been gone for a while? Maybe they come back. Could we have some guys jump ship from AEW? I mean, who knows? It's also April 1st, which is April Fool's.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what kind of maybe April Fool's joke WWE might pull on us tonight. Who knows?
Vince comes out.
Vince comes out with his cool mustache.
Shitty mustache.
Yeah. It turns into an episode of To Catch a Predator instead of Mania.
Yeah.
So on that note, it was a great Mania preview show. We didn't get to break down all the matches, but Sammy's great. Love having him on. He's a great guy to have on. You know, I would love to have him on again. The guy's busy. There's a lot of he dropped a few names that are for the New Texas Pro. So Bounty Keith, that guy is a guy to watch out for. If you don't know who he is, look him up on Instagram. Bounty Keith has been a world champ. He's a guy you could see in WWE or AEW sometime soon. You never know. But that's going to do it for us today. Ellie, Tony Twist, ATW All Things Wrestling Podcast. Shout out to the pro from the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Was excited when Ellie popped on the screen. So that's going to do it for us today. Special day, special time. We will not be on the air tomorrow. We'll be recovering from watching a long Mania tonight and another long Mania tomorrow. But hopefully it's a jam-packed show and it doesn't feel like a 10-hour show.
Hopefully not.
But anyways, that's going to do it for us today. Ellie G, if some fans want to get a hold of you, drop your email. How can they get a hold of you?
Ellie.g. No, hold on. I don't know. What is it? Ellie.g. No, leg.atw@gmail.com. It's new.
Boom. There you go. And I'm your host, Tony Twist. You can find us at ATW Podcast for Life on Twitter, ATW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, we're all over the place. But anyways, enjoy WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania 39 coming to you from Los Angeles. It should be a jam-packed show. Hopefully when we come back next Sunday, we have a new world champ, Cody Rhodes, new tag team champs. It's time to see some fresh faces out there, fellas. So
hell yeah.
Enjoy Mania. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'm your host, Tony Twist, LG, ATW, and we're out of here.